This is this is this is
All right, good evening to everyone. My name is Brittany Edwards, and I am the chairperson for the Management of Meetings and Events
this
group.
is
Uh, by my watch, it's now saying 5:58 p.m., and we are slated to begin at 6 p.m. So at this time, I just want to thank every person who has joined early. We see the participants coming in from about 5:30, and we're just elated to have you here this evening. This session it's entitled All right, good evening to everyone. My name is during the pandemic. It is a session that will be hosted by Mrs. Crystal
this
Mew
is
Honeywell. Before we start, however, we're going to invite Mrs. Shireen MacLeod Tate, who will do the opening prayer for us. She is a member of the MOME Secretarial Committee. After she has done the prayer, we're going to invite Miss Khadija Green to do the opening remarks and welcome. After that, you will hear Mr. Stephen Davis, who will give you the introduction of the host. Uh, you will indeed hear the voice of our host this evening, and I'm sure she'll take you on a lovely ride, and it's going to be a very exciting forum. So at this time, I'm going to invite persons in this particular order. So Mrs. McLeod Tate, Miss Khadija, and Mrs. Stephen Davis.
good evening, everyone.
All right, Mrs. McLeod Tate, I am not hearing her. Seems as if she has some internet connection issues. I'm going to ask Miss Allman to go ahead and do the opening prayer.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let us pray. Our Father in heaven, we thank you. We give you thanks for this beautiful evening where we can meet on this platform for this forum. For this forum, we ask that you grant us your blessing on this event so that we can enjoy and appreciate its significance in our lives. Bless everyone on this platform this evening, and that whatever we learn here this afternoon we will share with others. Grant us good mental health and our loved ones. May this event be a success as we seek your gracious presence. These and other admonitions we request from you through the name of your precious Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Miss Khadija Green, with the opening. remarks and welcome at this time.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and specially invited guests. We would like to extend a warm and hearty welcome to you for joining us at our Mental Health Forum 2021 under the theme Mental Health Protecting Your Mental Health During the Pandemic. We are students from the Management of Meetings and Events classroom at the University of Technology, Jamaica. First, a brief word about the purpose of the forum. This forum aims to reach our fellow brothers and sisters out there experiencing stress, depression, and other kinds of serious mental issues bombarding their minds. We are here to remind you, our audience, that there is help, professional help at that. Therefore, we hope that you will be informed after listening to what we have prepared for you so that you can leave this session feeling strong, encouraged, and empowered mentally. Notwithstanding that, but we have some entertainment and prizes in store for you. So stay tuned and enjoy the show.
All right, very well. Thank you so much. At this time, we're going to have Mr. Stephen Davis doing the introduction of the host. After the introduction, the next voice you will hear is Mrs. Ming Honeywell.
Thank you. Good evening. Mrs. Crystal Ming Honeywell completed her bachelor's degree in psychology at the University of the West Indies. She continued her educational path and completed her master's degree in health psychology at the University of Derby. A mother and wife who has worked in her capacities well. Inclusive of her various administrative capacities at the university since 2009, Mrs. Honeywell started lecturing part-time in 2020. In 2020, she has also started a YouTube channel that is geared towards educating others on mental health. The channel was started in the hopes of promoting awareness and a medium as to weight the Jamaican people so they can view mental health challenges with the same understanding and compassion as physical illnesses, as any other physical illness. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in welcoming Mrs. Crystal Ming Honeywell.
So I had a life-changing exam, right? So I stepped out of the room, entered the lobby area after completing an exam that I had prepared for months. I've been preparing for this exam for months, and I've been planning to complete this exam for years. So I stepped into the lobby, the news was on, and the Prime Minister was having a press conference. So as you can imagine, Prime Minister having a press conference, it means something is in store for us and something that might not be what we hope, right? So the meeting goes on and he says, well, we have 3 confirmed cases. And as such, all schools will be closed until further notice. Now, I work in the education sector. So that means as of, I think it was a Wednesday, as of Thursday, I would no longer be going out face to face to work. So while I was happy for that, in a sense, I was anxious. I was filled with anxiety. Anxiety was just rushing over me. I didn't know what to expect, right? So while I was fighting back the fear and trying to figure out what is it that I need to do now to prepare for this moment, we decided to go to the supermarket, right? You're going to be home for you don't know how long and you don't know exactly what you need. No, I don't like to spend money. So the fact that I am willing, so willing to go to the supermarket after we've just gone a few days before, it shows how anxious and how unprepared in the moment I felt. So We went to the supermarket, created a list, called it the COVID list. And on it was all the essentials that we thought we would have needed for the moment. So luckily, we had gone before we end up fighting for any toilet paper and for any Lysol or alcohol, right? So we beat the rush. So we ended up in no fight, right? So as you can all remember, subsequently, there were people fighting over toilet paper and alcohol and Lysol all over the world. Now, let's fast forward to a year and a half later. A year and a half later, we are still undergoing the impacts of COVID. When it just started, my husband had to strip at the door before he could enter the house because I had a 1-year-old at the time, and I didn't know, we as a nation didn't know what to expect from COVID. So he had to strip because I didn't want any of that, potential germs or any potential danger to come into the home. And while I was at home, he had to go out every day. And I was so anxious and so scared because I was saying, maybe, just maybe you need to quit your job and stay home. I still have my job. I can work online. So, we can just sell the car and see how we'll get by, right? Yes, it was a decision or a idea based only or created only because of the anxiety that I was feeling at the time. No, we have to remember that there are so many different people and so many different experiences that we have all had because of COVID-19. Now, while we would like to think that we are out of the blues because, we're no under less lockdown per se. However, we have to be mindful that there are new strains coming out. So we still have the social isolation. People who are socially isolated, they still work from home because of their illnesses. They're still afraid to leave their homes. So COVID has brought to light so many mental health issues and created a sense of mental hell for so many people. So this session is a well-timed one that will provide you with many insights on how to cope through it all, because it is not over. And because of the restrictions, we have a lot of mental health issues that might arise from it. So I want to thank you all for being here. I want to welcome you again to the forum. And I know for a fact that you will all learn something that you can share with those around you, tips and tricks on how to cope, because we are going to need it. And as a society, it is time that we shed light on mental health issues. So I welcome Miss, I welcome Miss Bailey, right? Miss Bailey to the mic to introduce our first speaker.
All right, so good night, everyone. Um, just a quick note before I get into my introduction. So, as we know, with all things technological related, there will always be issues and glitches. So, whilst I'm tasked with introducing our first speaker, he unfortunately had some issues joining due to, again, technology. So, what I'm going to graciously ask our host to do is to proceed with the introduction of the second speaker, as not only is she ready, she is raring to deliver her piece. So just a quick little shift in the schedule, but everything will go.
All right. So at this time, so yes, we understand technological difficulties, hence the headphone. Because when I entered the session, I wasn't able to hear as clearly as I wanted to. So, I draw from the backup plan. Always have a backup plan when it comes on to technology, right? But the show must go on. So we will invite Miss Rhonda Davis to come on and to give us our musical rendition. After which we'll have Miss Edwards, yes, Miss Edwards introducing our next speaker, Miss Alicia Edwards, who will be our first speaker for the night.
Hey everyone, my name is Rhonda Ronnie D. Davis, and accompanying me today is Jared Ensign on the guitar. The song that we'll be doing for you is Shackles by Mary Mary, and we just want to encourage you during this time to just breathe. It's a very difficult time, but we need to be free and enjoy ourselves. Enjoy. Da, 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 da. Take the shackles off my feet so I can dance. I just wanna praise you. I just wanna praise you. You broke the chain, now I can lift my hand. And I'm gonna praise you. I'm gonna praise you. Yeah, in the corners of my mind, I just can't seem to find a reason to believe that I can break free. You see, I have been down for so long, feel like all hope is gone. But as I lift my hand, I understand that I should praise you through my circumstance. Take the shackles off my feet so I can dance. I just wanna praise you. I just wanna praise you. You broke the chain, now I can lift my hand. And I'm gonna praise you. I'm gonna praise you. Everything that could go wrong, all went wrong at one time. So much pressure fell on me. I thought I was gonna lose my mind, but I know you wanna see if I will hold on through these trials. But I need you to lift this load, 'cause I can't take it no more. Please take them off so I can dance. I just wanna praise you. I just wanna praise you. You broke the chain, Lord, now I can lift my hand. And I'm gonna praise you. I'm gonna praise you. Hey, through the fire and the rain, bound in every kind of way, God has broken every chain. So let me go right now. Please take them off. I just wanna praise you. You broke the chain, now I can lift my hand. And I'm gonna praise you. I'm gonna praise you. Take the shackles off my feet so I can dance. I just wanna praise you. I just wanna. You broke the chain, Lord. Now I can lift my hand. I'm gonna. Take the shackles off my feet so I can dance. I just wanna praise you. I just wanna praise you. You broke the chain, now I can lift my hand. And I'm gonna praise you. I'm gonna praise
Absolutely beautiful, right? So no, thank you for that rendition. Now we will invite Miss Edwards to introduce our first speaker for the night.
Miss Alicia Edwards is a final year student at the University of Technology, Jamaica. She is from the Faculty of College of Business and Management. She is also a mental health advocate with experience in advocacy for over 3 years and has presented at numerous events locally and internationally. Miss Edwards first became involved with this work and called it her purpose when her older brother committed suicide after suffering from depression. This led to a dark season of her life because she was then diagnosed with depression and generalized anxiety disorder. However, she got the help she needed. Today, Miss Edwards is a part of the Jamaica Mental Health Advocacy Network and has been partnering with them to spread the awareness and importance of mental health. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Miss Alicia Edwards.
Hello, are you guys seeing me clearly? I'm not sure. Is everybody seeing me?
No, we're not seeing.
You're not
It's dark.
seeing me?
Flickering in and out.
Oh, I don't know what's happening. Oh no. I think I'm gonna have to come back in. Okay, I think I'm good now.
Yes, we're seeing you much better, much better.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what was happening. Okay. So, good day, everyone. I am so happy to be here with you all. So talking about debunking the whole mental health stigma, I feel like, especially, being Jamaican Caribbean, there's a whole stigma attached to mental health, unfortunately. But I think there are in my opinion, three main myths. So I'm just going to go in and talk about each of them separately. So I think the number one thing would be mental health. Mental illness has like a look. Like if you're not, madman on the street acting out, eating outside the garbage, and you're quite fine. You can't tell me that you have a mental illness and you're all dressed up and you look put together. So I think that's really I'd say the number one main myth is that people think you have to have a certain look attached to be mentally ill, which is, where the stigma comes in. Because if somebody's driving a nice car, they live in a nice house, they have a job, they have income coming in, you can't tell me that you're going through a hard time because you have all these things going on, it's very unfortunate. Because then when you tell someone you're not doing well mentally, but you have this and that, you're being ungrateful. And especially in the Jamaican household, we know that the ungrateful, that gets thrown out very often. Like, oh, you have a roof over your head, you're being ungrateful. There's so many other people that are going through worse than you. And while that may be true, that's their journey and your journey is different. So trying not to invalidate the experiences of other people just because you may have a little bit more than they do. So yeah, definitely number one myth is that it has a look. You don't have to look a certain way to be going through something. And I hope, if you don't take nothing from this, take that. Like extend grace and kindness to everyone, no matter how well put together they look, because they can be going through something too. It doesn't have to show. And the number two myth that I'd say a lot of people think men don't go through things. Like the mental health thing is like totally excluded from men, because men don't really show some men don't really show their emotions, don't really show their feelings like that, because they'll be deemed as weak, or there's so many other contexts when it comes on to Jamaican terms that would describe them. But yeah, trying to basically understand that men are human too, and they have very human feelings as well. So not because they're a man, they're not going to go through depression or anxiety, and they're not weak just because, that's the societal norm for men to just be aggressive and guarded and like in a shell and not showing these very real and human emotions that they have the right to experience because they're human as well. So that's definitely a myth that men don't go through these things. They do, and they deserve the help and guidance and support just like anybody else, because we're talking about human feelings and human experiences here. And the number three myth I'll go into is I don't know if any of you guys like grew up in a Christian household, but it would be that you just need to go to church. Like you just need to pray. You're depressed? No, we're going to church, you're going to the altar, we're going to pray that away. And as somebody that grew up in a Christian household, I know. But you can have faith and still realize that, okay, this is a human thing and I'm going to need a little bit more support. Because God put the resources here for us to use. So, when you into church, you don't want to, it's almost, I think, rooted in shame that you don't want to say, oh, well, I'm going through something, because then it's going to look like I'm ungrateful that God blessed me with these things and I'm still feeling a sort of way. But once again, human feelings, human experiences, human emotions. And this whole, somebody asks how you doing in church, he's like, I'm too blessed to be stressed. And it's like, you can be blessed and be grateful for your blessings, but still experience these human emotions, human feelings, hardships. It's okay. And God is not gonna punish you because you're going through these things. It's happened, it's life. So I feel like a lot of people that grew up in, whether you're a Christian or you grew up in a Christian household, it's like you invalidate your own self and your own feelings and your own experiences, because you're like, okay, you know what? I don't deserve to feel this way because God did this for me and God did that, and it's quite fine. So yeah, definitely my number three myth would be you can't church it away. You can have faith and you can pray for sure 100%, but you can still get the help that you need, because God put the resources here for us to use. And speaking of getting help, going into my number four myth would be that only crazy people have to go to therapy, or if you go to therapy, then you can't even come back from that because you're way off, like you need help. And that's totally untrue. You don't need to reach to like a sort of point of no return before you go and seek support and seek therapy. Because what therapy really is, it's just a mental checkup. Like, you go to the doctor for your physical checkup, make sure everything is okay physically. At the therapist, it's basically like a checkup for your mind. So you don't have to be going through this hard time and this life-changing experience to just make sure everything is going on how it's supposed to be going on up here. Because you don't know if you're living in like a sort of survival mode, unless you go and you talk and realize, oh, okay, so that's not normal. So yeah, just getting help, getting just that regular checkup, prioritizing your mental health the same way you do your physical health, 100% important. Because you won't go 2-3 weeks with a broken leg. You won't go to church for a broken leg, so you would try and get some help, go to the hospital ASAP. So the same way you're like so concerned about your physical health is the same way you should be about your mental health. So if you realize that 2-3 weeks you're feeling off, then it's time to really check in with yourself and be like, okay, what's going on? Because this is not normal. So yeah, getting support. You don't have to be going through, you don't even have to wait until you're in the deep trenches to
No touching, JR.
make sure everything's going on well. And yeah, I think that's all the myths. I think that's all the myths that I'd cover for tonight. So I'm so glad you guys had me, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the event. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those myths. Right. So we want to understand, because based on our society, we we kind of put men into a corner and we say, okay, you are not supposed to feel emotions, right? You are not supposed to express the emotions that we consider to be softer emotions. So I'm glad that we had you here tonight to shine light on some of those issues, right? Some of those myths, because if we are going to get the right approach, the right mindset as it relates to our mental health issues, then these myths have to, they have to be shown for what they are, just myths, misunderstandings. They need to be cleared up so that we can create the right culture where mental health is concerned. Because if your foot is broken, as was said, you are going to go to the doctor. So if you don't feel right weeks on end, then it is time to call a counselor or get a psychiatrist or psychologist to have that conversation to find out what is happening to me, because your mental health is everything. All right, guys. Just to note, we have over 100 persons on the session right now. So the link is posted. So if you know somebody who would like to join our session, kindly share the link so that they can access the YouTube viewing, right? So next we will have Miss Bailey to come on and introduce our second speaker for tonight.
All right, so good night again, everyone. I'm tasked with introducing our second speaker. No, our second speaker is Dr. Agri Irons. Dr. Agri Irons is a consultant psychiatrist and past president of the Medical Association of Jamaica. He completed his studies at the University of the West Indies, Mona, Harvard University, as well as Loughborough University. Dr. Irons has throughout his professional life, worked as a medical officer at the Psychiatry Bellevue Hospital, as a part-time casualty officer at the Boston Banty Hospital for Children, among other career moves, such as serving as the chairman of the Jamaica Coalition for Tobacco Control. He's a renowned scholar. He has been known for winning the Aaron Matalan Prize Award for Psychiatry at the University of the West Indies. Dr. Agri Benjamin Irons was awarded with membership in the Order of Distinction in the rank of Commander. Aside from all these listed accolades, Dr. Irons is a husband, a father, a grandfather, as well as a captivating host and renowned master of ceremonies. I am pleased to present to you all tonight Dr. Agri Benjamin Irons. Dr. Irons, you're muted. You're muted. Right.
All right, guys, so it does appear that Dr. Irons is still having a little issue getting on. All right, so what I want you to go ahead and do for me is to just go ahead and post some emojis of how you're feeling right now in the chat. So I know that we all have different experiences in our lives, right? We will all feel different. Nobody feels the same at the same time. So go ahead and use up those emojis and let me see the emotions that you're feeling today at this very moment. Yes, feeling great. Awesome. Awesome.
Am I
Right?
unmuted now?
Yes, you
Yes.
are.
Yes, Dr. Irons, go ahead.
Okay, good evening. I'm very sorry about that hitch there because I did unmute at this end, but apparently there was a problem. But if you're having no difficulty seeing and hearing me, I'd like to once again wish your participants a wonderful evening and hope that they will listen and absorb at least 10% of what I have to say. I want to thank you for that wonderful introduction. And maybe I'll carry you with me whenever I'm speaking in the future, because you made me sound absolutely wonderful, much better than my real self. Good, I'm on your full screen now, so I'll begin. Stress is a human response to change, and that is something I would like to leave with you, that you will always remember. Stress is the human response to change. And the biggest change that we've been through recently is the pandemic, the epidemic that has literally ruled the world and caused all of us, every single person, has had to change their behavior in some way, or their behavior has been changed in some way by the experience of this particular change in itself. So when change causes change, that change in the human being is known as stress. And as the previous speaker said, we don't have to go down to rock bottom to get help for the stress that we feel. And that stress, anxiety, depression, as a reaction to behavioral change or circumstance changing, is a normal human activity. Were you saying something, Madam Chairman? Well, when we experience stress or experience extreme change, our minds and our bodies change accordingly. The first change that people experience, as you can see, is anxiety. People don't know or are afraid of what is to come. Ignorance of the facts is one of the greatest causes of anxiety, because when we don't know what to expect or what is about to happen, we don't know whether to run away or whether to stay and resist or fight. And if you've heard this before, it's the usual fight or flight response that is mediated in the human being by the production of a chemical called adrenaline and other associated chemicals, which make us ready to combat what it is that's happening to us. Some of us have a great ability to combat, and some of us have a lesser ability to combat, but many of us get overexcited or overstimulated when we have to face a problem. And usually that results in what we call anxiety. But I'd like to get back to the whole interpretation of the stress that we've been under based on the change that we've been going through and what we can do about it. The thing is that whenever we experience stress, our first response as human beings is to try and find new ways in which to cope. And I want you to remember that word cope, because we're going to use it as an acronym towards exploring our responses, not just to the pandemic, but to any other kind of stress that we may have to endure. For example, the other stresses that come with the pandemic, like the death of a loved one, or the extreme illness of a loved one, or the extreme illness of oneself, and fear of one's own passing, you know, very, very, very stressful. So let's get back to coping, C-O-P-E. The C is for communication. The first thing we should do about our feelings is that we should trust somebody enough to communicate those feelings to that person, so that we never, ever feel alone in terms of how we're going through the changes that we're going through. People say, you know, a, 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 a problem shared is a problem halved. Sometimes we depend on people so much that we cast off our problems on them. And those people who feel that they're strong enough to take on everybody's problems soon find that they too can become overwhelmed. So we must communicate, but we must not be too dependent. We must be independent while communicating. One of the easiest ways to do that is to get accustomed to talking to your friends, to your acquaintances, to your family, talking to them about your feelings. Don't be afraid of your feelings. And when we talk back to people who are experiencing stress, do not be afraid to use the pronoun we, rather than say, you should do that, or you should do that, or if I were you, this is what I would do. No. People like to hear that you're involved, you're sympathetic, you're empathetic, and we, as a plural pronoun, communicates that very well. Our communication should be simple and direct. We should communicate in such a way that we check. There is a Jamaican response that I find very engaging when people are in casual conversation and they say, so and so and so, you see me? In other words, whenever we communicate, whether we're the one suffering or whether we're the one showing empathy and trying to help in a situation, we should always check that we have been understood and that our meaning, simple as it may be, has been translated into some sort of action. Any other CO word like coordination or cooperation goes very well with communication, because the word, the prefix really, CO, means with. It means that you're together, you're not alone. And when people are going through changes, especially a change that requires that you come apart from the rest of society, that you stay by yourself a lot, communication is very important. And that's why a platform such as this is so very excellent for the times that we're in, that we can continue to communicate with each other, even though we're no longer face to face. And we can do it in a way that our emotions still get transmitted and we still get to understand one another. So from communicating, we move to coordinating and cooperating, doing things together. Then just what these young students have done, the next word beginning with O is to organize. In times of stress and change, we need to become better organized. And what better way to be organized than to learn and to use these opportunities to develop good time management. Many of us have been careless in the past with our time. Today, when we start, for example, a program like this, the time is always very important. The amount of time that I'm going to be allowed to speak is important. But time, as we must always remember, is lent to us. We must use it wisely because we never get it back again. So we have to organize ourselves. We have to almost specialize in terms of doing things in a way that we have never done them before. Start writing stuff down, start making timetables, start making special timeouts for relaxation. People who have to study or work at home have to get accustomed to a home timetable. You have to do journaling. You have to literally organize yourself. And with that comes the P word, because remember, we're working with COPE. P, of course, is for planning. If you don't have a plan, well, then you must fail. You have to have a plan. And the thing with a plan is nobody ever really tells us how to plan. But it's very simple if you follow the next 3 steps. First of all, you have to know or identify any problem that you're having. But you don't identify it as a problem, you identify the solution to the problem. In other words, I don't have enough money for X. That is a problem. Identifying it as a solution is to say to yourself, I must find a way to save X amount for such and such a purpose. When we re-identify our problems, and this applies to all our problems in the pandemic, when we identify them or re-identify them as solutions, then we have clear goals. We need clear goals so that we can plan properly, because the planning begins with the goals, and then the second step is to identify all the things we have going for us. For example, I can't claim to be young again.
Rod, to have mercy. I feel Lincoln there. Yes.
Yes, all the things we have going for us, and then identify all the things we have going against us, and then using them, the things we have going for us, to cancel the things that are going against us. And once we make that kind of a plan, and at the end of the planning process, we turn to the letter E, which is for evaluation. So COPE means communication, organization, planning, and then at the end of the process of dealing with this stress or this problem, we wheel and come again, as good Jamaicans do. We look at what we have done and we say to ourselves, how could we have done it better? That's all that is required in evaluating oneself, whether we're talking about one's behavior or whether we're talking about the broader concept of life. Because try and remember, behavior does not just refer to people with mental health problems. During stressful times like the pandemic, our behavior is going to change. We have to manage that behavior and learn how to cope. And if we use the 4-step method of communicating and all the other CO words, organizing ourselves better, planning, and of course, in the plan must always be the time management, and the organization involves that too. But we must always give ourselves enough time to not only get the job done, but to relax, unwind, do the things that make us happy. And then at the end of the day, we must always look back at what we have done, and we do it better tomorrow. Thank you very much. I'm sure you have lots of questions and so on, but I think the chairman will handle that part of it. Thanks very much for your kind attention, and I hope that we'll get through this together and we'll all be wonderful at the end of this all.
Thank you much, Dr. Aarons. Thank you very much. All right, so let me see those who were taking notes. I know we have a lot of students in the house. So for those of you who have been taking notes, please go ahead and type what you took away from all that Dr. Aarons has said. All right, but I'm gonna go first. So cope, communication, you need to be organized, plan, because remember, if you fail to plan, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. We've always been told that from prep school coming or primary school coming right up. We've always been told if you don't have a plan in place, then you're heading towards failure. Then we must always be able to evaluate, right? So no matter your age or stage in life, planning is still important. You must be able to evaluate yourself, and all of this helps with mental health. You have most persons still working from home, and sometimes it feels as though you don't have any type of work-life balance, or students, they feel like they're always at school. So when you have time, create a plan, create a schedule, it will help, to ease the burden, to help you feel as though you have some type of control over your life. Because in a time like this, most of us feel like there is no control. So let me go ahead and see, right? So persons have been listening. So some of the things the responses that we're getting in the chat: stress is a human response to change. That is Yannick's takeaway. Always have somebody you can trust, especially in a time like this when the focus is on fake friends. All right, Leanne has said that. So what we need to do is to communicate with our friends. That's very important. And we have the smartphones. Everybody have one, right? So check in on your friends, and don't forget to check in on those that live in your house as well, because sometimes, the phone takes away from that. All right. So next on our agenda, we have Miss Edwards, who will come and do a poem called Their Anxiety.
Hi everyone, this is Brittany Edwards. I'm presenting this evening a poem entitled Their Anxiety. Please do enjoy. Their Anxiety. This is where I leave you. Imagine for years I've tied myself to you in holy matrimony, married to rejection and shame. I believed everything you taught me, so I learned very early that asking for help was a sign of the weak. Was it sick of me to get the expert help it was obvious that I need? I was told not to be another burden the world had to see. So I just had to suffer in silence, sulky, sullen, sad. But all I really needed was a comforting moment. But that moment is what I never really had. I just want a divorce. I want a divorce. But you keep asking me why I need to take a break. Again, to you, that was deemed as a sign of the weak. I had to keep going. All my thoughts had to be on repeat. I had to be perfect. There was no rest for me. Perhaps I was wicked. Yet everything I said, everything I did was all in my head, as you would say. I was Overwhelmed, the world could not see my pain, for I was forced to wear a straight face, a smile, or just deny the feeling. Nobody understood that my mind only needed healing. Yes, it is apparent that our bodies need nourishment from food. But when it came to my mental health, that need for nourishment was obviously removed. I didn't want to go outside. I didn't see the need for the sunlight. I didn't want to do anything I used to like. Nothing just doesn't feel right. I couldn't sleep at night. My anxiety was through the roof. The fact that I lost my appetite was already enough proof. I was suffering in silence. It was mental hell, just trying to protect my mental health alone. I was not supposed to do it alone. And that I learned the hard way. I wasn't told that there was an easier way out and that help was a part of the process. There were things that I needed to do, but I also needed help to protect my mental health. It is a real feeling. It's natural too. And becoming mentally exhausted can happen to you. There is enough seat at the table to entertain a person with a conversation about his mind. How are you doing today? Is a question we can ask from time to time. So I've just had too much. I've had enough. My anxiety needs to go. But in that very same process, I need to let the world know that mental health is important and it is worth protection. I will no longer accept this ring as a symbol of our love. I will not stay committed to you, anxiety, and dare to call it love. Yours truly, an anxiety divorcee.
Absolutely beautiful. Anxiety, let's break up. Love it. Now, let me see those of you in the chat who know what it feels like to be anxious, who have had issues from time to time with anxieties, who have even experienced a panic attack or two, right? So if you have had that experience, go ahead and type in the chat, anxiety, let's break up, right? So that was beautiful, deep, it was real, and it was touching. So we will prepare to have our third speaker. So Miss Ricketts, the mic is yours. All right, so I'm not seeing Miss Ricketts, so we'll have Miss Simmons who will come on and introduce our third speaker for the night.
Good night, everyone. Sorry for the delay. Our third speaker for tonight is Miss Keneen Senior. Miss Keneen Senior has been an educator for a little over 10 years, serving in both the private and public education system in Jamaica. Currently, she serves as a senior lecturer and research officer at the Monique College in St. Anne's, Jamaica. facilitating courses in the psychology, social, and criminal justice program. She is the 2018 recipient of the CCCJ Instructional Leadership Award and the League of Innovation Johnson Susan Roach Excellence in Teaching Award. She is a multipreneur serving as a CEO for Second Eyes Research Hub, a writing, research, and proofreading entity, and Kids Classy Appeal, as well as the program director for God's Investment for Today, a social development initiative geared at meeting the psychosocial and spiritual needs of at-risk children and youth, which has contributed her selected to participate in the 2020 Young Leaders of the American Initiative Fellowship in the United States. She also offers individual counseling and mental health service through her private practice. Ms. Senior earns a bachelor degree of science in psychology with a minor in criminology, which she earns at the University of West Indies, Mona. She earned a postgraduate diploma in the education from the University of Technology, Jamaica, and a Master's of Art degree in forensic pathology from the University of North Dakota in the United States. She is a mental health advocate and a counselor and a lover of learning. She is a member of the Church of God of Prophecy, where she served as the director of the counseling ministry. She operates on the mantra, if I can do better, good is not enough. Our third speaker, Ms. Kenny Senior.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ricketts. Just let me know if you're hearing me clearly.
Hearing you and seeing you clearly.
Thank
You're
you
so
very
beautiful.
much. Thank you. All right, so I am really honored to be able to share with you this evening on something that I'm really passionate about, mental health, and also to share with you some nuggets that I've garnered in my practice as well as in my other engagements. So in my introduction, you would have heard my training is in the area of psychology, forensic psychology specifically. Part of my work, I serve as a program director for GIFT, and GIFT stands for God's Investment for Today. So that is a social initiative that's geared towards meeting the psycho-spiritual needs of at-risk children and youth. Part of my work as well provides me with the opportunity to work through the Ministry of National Security in the We Transform program, where I serve as a mentor to the girls at the South Camp Juvenile Facility, as well as a post-release mentor. So those persons who have served their time in the juvenile facilities, I work along with them as a part of their reintegration process. So this evening, I have been asked to share with you on understanding the mental health situation of at-risk youth during the pandemic. A whole lot to cover, and I hope that I'll be able to do justice to this topic. So I'll get right into it. So when we talk about at-risk youth, most persons immediately what comes to mind is a negative connotation. We start to think of those youth who we see on the streets, those who are perpetually getting themselves into problems. And because of that, it tends to cause some amount of stigmatization, because the reality is that all of us at some point or another can be considered to be at risk. Some would argue that children and young people are at risk in some way or another, while others will emphasize that there are some children who face a much greater risk or a higher risk than other children. So when we talk about being at risk, or when we talk about at-risk youth, we're really talking about those persons who have some form of disability, We can talk about youth who have issues with low self-esteem. We can talk about youth who have had issues relating to abuse, whether it be physical, sexual, emotional. We can look at issues relating to poverty, having parents who have a low educational background. In some spaces, growing up in a single parent family can cause you to be at risk. We can look at issues of homosexuality in terms of sexuality generally. We can look at those persons who are in state care or in the rehabilitation centers that I spoke to earlier. Generally, when we talk about risk factors or youth at risk, we're talking about anything that undermines the development of the child. So one thing I need to point out before I go forward is that adolescence in itself is considered to be a vulnerable aspect of our development, right? It's a period where you are transitioning. And so there are a lot of changes taking place. And this is where we find that a lot of persons tend to experience the most psychological symptoms or turmoil. And so imagine normal anxiety and depression that comes with being an adolescent or a youth, coupled with all the other things that put you at risk, be it disability, low self-esteem, high crime community, low income community. So those things basically add to what would have already put you at risk by virtue of you being a young person. Coupled with that, the reality that faces a lot of our at-risk youth, we can look at their socioeconomic background. Many of them are forced into illegal activities. Yes, we can say that they made a conscious decision to engage in some of these activities, but because of life circumstances, they would have ended up in some of these activities, illicit activities. Many of them live in poverty. I spoke to stigmatization and discrimination, unattachment, because many of them sometimes they stop attending school from as early as grade 8, grade 9. Right? And so there is no attachment to formal institutions, school, church, social organizations, clubs, that kind of thing. So the bond between them and society, legitimate society in many cases, those have been severed. We can talk about issues relating to irregular school attendance, underperformance, and of course, there are cases where there is lack of proper nutritional support. And this is just the reality of a lot of the at-risk youth that I have engaged with, and I'm sure that you have met a couple of them. Now, when we say that they are at risk, what are they at risk of or for? The short answer for that is poor life outcomes. So the likelihood is that there's going to be school failure, premature death, there's going to be economic dependency, unemployment, incarceration, and the list could go on and on, right? When children, when young people are not provided with the right kinds of environment from day one, in Jamaica would say that they were not born with a gold spoon in their mouth. There are certain things that it's not that it's mandatory that they're going to encounter the poor life outcomes, because we have heard some success stories, but it increases the likelihood that these things will happen. So the normal angst of adolescence and youth. How many of you can say that you have felt issues relating to anxiety, being nervous, having issues relating to depression, experiencing fear, grief, just being angry at the world around you, thinking back to when you were a teenager coming up in high school, and even now being in university, feelings of shame, and just a sense of worthlessness. And so these are the emotions that come with just being a young person. Right? Some days you get up and you just feel like the world is out to get you. You're just mad at the world and you're dealing with all sorts of things. And every time I think about adolescence, my mind always goes back to Britney Spears' song, "I'm not a girl, not yet a woman." You're just trapped in between these two worlds and trying to figure out where you are. And that in itself can lead to mental health issues. That's just normal adolescence. But then last year, a little thing called COVID stepped in. And as this young man in this video that I'm going to share with you says, COVID mash up everything. Right? So we're going to have a listen, we're going to watch, and then we're going to have a discussion about how COVID has exacerbated the issues relating to the mental health of our at-risk youth.
When I usually wake up in the morning, you press your uniform, ready for school, put a uniform, take a taxi, go for a walk. No, when you wake up in the morning, only thing you have to do is just babysit, because I'm not go to school. Violence stuff everywhere right now. In the community, when the violence is happening, it's hard for you to study and for focus because all more day you sit down at the door for your book, recap certain thing, you be a shot start fire. I was going online class about 2 weeks. I didn't have any device or nothing to do the online class, no Wi-Fi, nothing. But my mother, she did meet in an incident where her hand get broken. So I used for her phone do the online work. But where it come negatively now is when my mother have to go back to work and she have to use her phone to her business. So when she come home, I not get the time for do the school work. All 5 different classes sending work. So that's some I lose focus off of the class thing. Right now, COVID just smash up everything. Kinda hard for the woman not going to school and not enough class not keep or nothing. So most of the training take up my time. I don't have no else to do. Rather babysit with her than go to the road and there on the bad company. So best thing must stay with my sister and babysit her.
There's consistent violence that is taking place in Southside right now. I'm happy to know that you're surviving, because sometimes when you're a young person who you're consistently on the street, especially if your home is not that highly entertaining or create that kind of atmosphere you want to stay in there.
I have 120 youths on the program. The students are suffering. Damoy is one of our success stories. He almost lost his life to gun violence. I have seen where Damoy has grown. He needs a chance like everybody else. In Jamaica, we say, what not dead, don't call it dumpy. He's a child who has beat the odds. And if you give him a chance, you will see somebody positive in your school.
The PMI program helped me from far away. And also the UNICEF. Them show me certain things, make you see life more wider. Education is the key, in everything, Education is the key in everything right now. And forever.
All right, so that's Damoy's story, and Damoy's story is a reflection of what a lot of our at-risk youth are going through. So I'm just going to be sharing some findings from the research, and then we're going to talk about some of the strategies that they're likely to use or some of the targeted interventions. So one of the things you'll recognize is that COVID-19 has increased and elevated the risk for at-risk youth. So some of them were being maltreated prior to COVID, and it has increased. Many of them were homeless, and we're seeing an increase in that. Some of them prior to COVID were abusing substances, be it alcohol or drugs, and we have seen an increase in that. Yes, there was negative family interaction, economic uncertainty. We had limited access to resources. And of course, as I spoke to earlier, there were mental health concerns. And so COVID has elevated their risk for these things. The very things that they were experiencing, they're experiencing them even more since the pandemic. According to the director for PAHO, they have noted that with every passing day that our children stay away from the physical school, what you're finding is that they're at an increased risk of dropping out or never returning to school. Working in higher education, I can tell you that that has been our reality. Since the onset of COVID, we have seen where a number of our students have decided not to return to school. And if they even complete the year, they are not coming back for the second or the third year, either because of economic conditions, or they just feel demotivated, they cannot manage the online environment. The Anxiety and Depression Association of America, they have found that the pandemic has affected daily stressors, coping, and suicidal ideation among psychiatrically hospitalized youth. So in that case, they're speaking to those who already had mental health issues that would have caused them to be hospitalized. And they're finding that there are elevated cases of stress and suicidal ideation, meaning that they're contemplating and having a plan as to how it is that they're going to take their own lives. Earlier, I spoke to some of the risk factors, and the research done in 2012 had found that the LGBTQ community, those who are maltreated, those young people who run away, those who are homeless, they're at a disproportionately high risk for depression, suicidal ideation and suicide, and self-harming. And self-harming is basically any attempts at hurting yourself. Most commonly, we might see persons self-mutilating, that is cutting of the wrists or cutting of the legs, and others will use different parts of the body. And they have found that there is a 2 to 10 times rate of attempted suicide among this population in comparison to their other peers. And this, I need to point out, because this research was done in 2012, I need to point out that this was happening prior to COVID, right? The COVID containment measures, while they have been put in place to contain the virus, what we're finding is that with all the measures that have been put in place, the lockdown days and the no movement days and that kind of thing, we've seen that it has impacted our economy. So persons have lost their jobs. And one of the things that we're recognizing is that it has the most devastating impact on those who live in low-income communities. And remember that I pointed out earlier that that is one of the risk factors. That's one of the reasons why we consider some young people to be at risk. The result of the loss of income and autonomy, of course, has intensified household stress. And so we are seeing an increase in domestic violence and conflict. We have also noted that because our children and young people are home, it also gives them more time to engage with negative forces within the community, right? As we normally say, the devil finds use for idle hands. So a lot of them are not able to access the online platforms. They don't have the devices, as Damoy spoke to in his story. And so let's find something to do. So they're engaging with negative forces. Another thing that we will also recognize is that there is also increased risk for harm. They're at home. In many cases, their homes are dangerous. And we recognize that this now provides an opportunity for increased physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect. And one of the issues we also recognize is that the safety nets that were in place to protect our children, they are not as available to our children because of the COVID-19 crisis and the fact that they are home. Whereas a child would have been able to just get up from their class and go to the guidance counselor to just have a talk about what may be going on at home. Now they are home 24/7, right? So the stay-at-home mandates, they limit exposure to mandated reporters. Many times the red flags went up when the kids went to school and the teacher would see that something is going wrong and they could, intervene. They are at home 24/7, right? So the mandated reporters are not in contact with them as much as they should. So of course, we have heard the calls from the Office of the Children's Advocate because they're saying parents need to keep an eye out. The guidance counselors need to be doing more home visits because the children are being harmed at home and there is nobody to look out for them. In addition to that, we are seeing where there is frustration with learning loss. You heard Damoy speak to it, being online for 2 weeks and then mommy has to take her phone to go back to work. How do I access school, right? And of course, there has been the increase in child labor. I'm sure those in Kingston can talk about the window washers, and we're seeing an increase in those cases, even in the rural areas. One of the things we need to recognize where mental health is concerned is that, as Dr. Irons had said, that stress is how we respond to, it's our response to change. And what a change that COVID has brought on us, right? We're seeing that isolation and loneliness, they're often precursors to depression and anxiety. One of the things that a lot of people do to manage depression and anxiety is to get busy, because when you are alone with your thoughts and you're constantly ruminating, that is when things kind of get out of control. You don't get the opportunity to communicate and to be engaged in activities as much. And so that increases your issues with depression and anxiety. And so we are seeing elevated cases of those among our children and young people. There has been a disruption in daily routine, which of course has led to uncertainty about the present and the future. As I spoke to earlier, social interactions are disrupted, and that has minimized with resulting increase in loneliness. We have seen where persons are also fearful that they might get infected with the COVID-19 virus. And you know, in Jamaica, when somebody dies, we normally go to night. We normally have a whole set of activities. We visit people's homes. And so the traditional ways of grieving, we have not been able to do that. So those are issues that our at-risk youth are dealing with. Having had interactions with some of the girls at South Camp, they will say, I've not been able to see my parents, right? They have only heard that somebody from the family has passed away, and they have not been able to be a part of the grieving process, right? So the pandemic has disrupted life in more ways than one. UNICEF conducted a study in early last year, and they found a study in the Caribbean and in Latin America, and they found that 27% of those they had interviewed were reporting feelings of anxiety, 15% reporting feelings of depression. 30% said that their emotions, the current emotions that they were experiencing, was as a result of the economic situation. Because when you don't have money, all kind of business spoil, right? 46% report having less motivation to do the activities that they usually enjoyed. Can you imagine the activities that they did not enjoy, like going to school? That is even worse. 36% feel less motivated to do regular chores, and you know young people never love to do chores from day one. Their perception of the future has been negatively affected, particularly in the case of young women, where we saw that 43% of the women felt pessimistic about the future compared to 31% of their male counterparts. What we have also recognized is that there is an increased association between alcohol or substance abuse and COVID-19. In fact, one study that was conducted earlier this year, they found that quarantine during COVID-19 pandemic was positively associated with different types of drinking patterns, specifically with online social drinking. So because we have not been able to engage face-to-face, we know that there has been an increase in online parties and engagements. So they're finding that through quarantines, persons have been engaging in online social drinking. Anxiety symptoms were associated with a higher frequency of heavy episodic drinking, right? More than online social drinking. And also another category was drinking before 5 p.m. And yes, this is in reference to young people. So what are some of the ways that we can manage our mental health during this pandemic? And it's not just applicable to at-risk youth. These are things that we advocate for generally. And Dr. Irons would have spoken to some of these in COPE, right? One of the first things is we have to advocate for avoidance of alcohol and drugs. They really don't solve anything, right? What they do is create some form of avoidance. You drink and tomorrow the problem still exists, and you have to drink tomorrow again to forget that it exists, and it just keeps going in cycles. We also have to advocate for self-care. You might say, how is an at-risk person, somebody who doesn't have any money and the kind of situation that they live in, how are they going to take care of themselves or engage in self-care? Well, simple things. We think of self-care as something that we need to spend a lot of money on. We need to go on a cruise or a vacation somewhere. Self-care is as simple as exercising, as eating properly if you can, and sleep, getting enough sleep, right? So start small and you can build from there. If we had more time, I could share other tips where self-care is concerned, but those are the basics. Getting a nice shower. Dr. Irons mentioned journaling. It's a good self-care technique to use as well. Support seeking. We have to normalize communication, and that was the C in COPE, right? We have to normalize speaking and communicating our feelings and our emotions. When we become overwhelmed, we need to have support systems. So we are talking about the formal support and the informal support. Who are the persons that you have in your corner that should something happen to you, should you be feeling overwhelmed and feeling like your back is against the wall, who are the persons that you can call on? And of course, there are the formal organizations. I think this first speaker is a part of the Mental Health Advocacy Network. You can reach out to them. Victim support, the guidance counselors. There are so many persons who are out there who are ready and raring to provide this kind of support. And the beautiful opportunity that COVID has provided is that we're having more discussions about mental health. So the support is there, and we encourage people to access the support systems that are available. We also advocate for taking breaks from the news. I know a lot of persons don't use the traditional media sources, the newspaper and radio and television. So take a break from social media, unplug and recharge. That certainly will help with how you manage your mental health during this time, because I don't know how many of you did this, but when COVID just stepped into Jamaica, we were glued to our televisions every day, just trying to hear how many new cases, how many persons have died now, and it became so overwhelming. So I do advocate for persons taking a break and recharging. During this time, nurture a talent or a hobby. One of the things that I started doing for my own mental health during this pandemic was to blog. Right? Find something that you're good at and nurture that talent, right? Many persons, we've seen an increase in entrepreneurship in Jamaica since the pandemic. What are you good at? Tap into that and make very good use of it during this time. Another thing Dr. Irons spoke to is planning and organization. So I will say maintain a schedule. You can't just get up in the morning and anything goes, because that too is going to contribute to anxiety and depression and other forms of mental health issues. So you want to maintain a schedule. And while we were told that we need to maintain physical distance and all of that, nobody told us that we cannot engage socially. There are so many opportunities for us to relate to each other in the online space. And yes, it can become overwhelming, but we do not want to forget the need to engage and to socialize, even though we are physically distant. The National Council for Behavioral Health in the United States has suggested too that you maintain a daily routine with consistent sleep, activity, and study patterns, that you stay connected with others and try to find moments of humor. Talk to people who you feel comfortable talking to about your worries, about your frustrations, about your anxiety. You want to limit the amount of time you spend talking about or watching news media or social media. And you want to be kind to yourself. Some of us, it's like we have gotten into this state where people are achieving and people are doing all of these things, but celebrate the small wins, be kind to yourself. When you feel overwhelmed, when you feel like you can't take it anymore, take a break. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and let's work through this together. Now, I just wanted to share with you what's happening across the world and how some young people have been managing their mental health. So one person says that my formula, and this is a 17-year-old in Jamaica, my formula has been I've kept myself busy, I've exercised more, I've maintained a great attitude. In Brazil, another 17-year-old says that they got up early and they tried to be more productive and self-aware, and that helped. One person said, I tried not to stress. This is a 22-year-old, and this one resonated with me. He said, no stress. I don't have an exact formula. The only thing is that I try not to stress, avoid panic, and continue my normal routine. In the end, I told myself that stress does more damage than the virus itself. One person found themselves helping out more. This is a 15-year-old in Argentina. My formula has been to help in a community kitchen to distract myself and not think about this pandemic. So while they're stressing or they feel like this is going to cause them stress, they have found a way to help others and it has helped them to relieve their own stress. One person in Guatemala says, my formula has been to read and write what makes me feel bad. On many occasions, I have cried, and that too can be very cathartic, can be very therapeutic. I've tried to distract myself by drawing or watching series, and that resonated with me too. The COVID-19 has changed me a lot. I don't even recognize myself. This 17-year-old from Costa Rica, we do not all have the same possibilities to maintain our physical and emotional well-being. That's why I didn't hesitate to ask for help. And I can't say this enough, that we need to normalize help-seeking behaviors, right? Ibrahim in the United States says, I started to feel different after my local government issued a stay-at-home order. I felt trapped, anxious. I realized that I couldn't let this pandemic get the best of me. I started exercising twice a day, making music, studying, and I had virtual parties with my friends. And then these last two says, don't hate, create. So I spoke to, getting the hobbies and starting to do something creative with the time that you have in lockdown. And then if you can't go outside, go inside. So we're talking about the spiritual part, the meditation and the praying, and for some persons, yoga. So what is the way forward? We have to join in the call and advocacy for initiatives that support the economic and education and social needs of our young people, especially those who are at risk. We want to improve accessibility of the activities and resources to help them stay in contact with their peers. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, they have tried many targeted interventions, and other private organizations have come on board to facilitate this. But you can get involved as well. We want to support hobby development, help persons to recognize what their talents are. If it is even starting a garden, that can help. And we want to leverage the internet and mobile technology to improve accessibility of mental health support. In my own private practice, much of the work that I do now has been online because, of course, with the pandemic, a lot of persons are seeking help in terms of dealing with their mental health issues, but they are far away. And so they don't mind coming online on Zoom or Google Meet, whatever platforms they are most comfortable with. And so I just want to remind you of one of the taglines that we have in this area, is that there is no health without good mental health. I want to remind you that our youth are already at risk for being youth. And so we want to support them as much as possible during this time. We want to normalize, as I said, help-seeking behaviors and create safe spaces where they know that it is okay to not be okay. And as I thought about that, there is this song that I learned recently, and I think it is very relevant. I won't share all of it with you, but just a brief part of it that says it's okay. It's okay to not be okay.
I moved to California in the summertime. I changed my name thinking that it would change my mind. I thought that all my problems, they would stay behind. I was a stick of dynamite and it just was a matter of time. Oh dang, oh my, now I can't hide. Said I knew myself, but I guess I lied. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. If you're lost, we all get lost, and it's alright. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. If you're lost, we all get lost, and it's alright, it's alright. I wrote 100 pages, but I burned them all. Yeah, I burned them all. I blow through yellow lights and don't look back at all. I don't look back at all. Yeah, you can call me reckless, I'm a cannonball. I'm a cannonball. Don't know why I take a tightrope and cry when I fall. Oh dang, oh my, now I can't hide. Said I knew what I wanted, but I guess I lied. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. If you're lost, we're all a little lost, and it's alright. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. If you're lost, we're all a little lost, and it's alright, it's alright. It's alright, it's alright, it's alright.
So it's all right, it's okay. It's okay to not be okay. And there are going to be times when all of us will experience mental health issues, but just know that help is available and seek the support that you need. Thank you very much for having me.
Miss Senior, thank you very much. That was a very tremendously informing and beautiful presentation. No, for those of you in the chat, I just want you to go ahead and type, it's okay to not be okay. Right? Just go ahead and type that in chat. It's okay to not be okay. Right? We need to embrace that so others can know. And Miss Senior, question to you. A lot of persons in the chat wanted to know, how could they become a part of helping the at-risk youths? How could they become a part of some of these mental health initiatives?
I believe your first speaker can speak to the Mental Health Advocacy Network. I do have contacts with them as well. You can Google them and reach out to them. There is also the We Transform program. That's a program through the Ministry of National Security. You can get involved. I can provide that contact. I can post my contact in the chat, as a matter of fact. And then I also lead a program, the GIFT program. That's God's investment for today. Our core focus is through providing academic assistance, mentorship, through empowerment sessions. We provide scholarships to at-risk persons, at-risk youth. So you can get in touch with me, but just a general Google search of programs that are available will lead you to those avenues. Okay. So there are many opportunities out there for you to get involved.
All right, guys, so we're encouraging each and every one of you to try and get involved in some of these mental health initiatives, because as you can see, there are people out there who are in need of our help. And it's not even people out there. There are persons that you might know who are in need of your help. But because there's this stigma still associated with mental health, people are still finding it hard to open up and to say, hey, I'm feeling a little depressed. I'm feeling anxious. I'm having anxiety attacks. People are still not okay with saying that. So it is time that we transition into a place where we are okay to say we are not okay, right? So thank you very much for your tips, Ms. Senior. We really appreciate it. And as I said, it was a beautiful, very informative presentation. All right, so I know most of you have been waiting for the giveaway section. So I do have some giveaways for you. Oh, but before I go there, there are a few things I wanted to touch on, right? So some of the coping tips that Ms. Senior provided us with, right? Just to do a quick recap. So self-care is very important. It's important for us to take care of ourselves. And I know you hear a lot of counselors and psychologists saying exercise, exercise. And you wonder why we need to exercise. But exercising is important, not just for the body, but for the mind, right? Because it does help with anxiety. It makes you feel better about yourself. So that is one of the reasons why we encourage you to exercise and avoid drugs, because it don't help. It just gets you addicted. So as you know, you take a little here, Tomorrow you have to take a little more to get the same feeling that you had yesterday. So you're just creating an addiction. Seek help, seek support, right? There are institutions, there are organizations, as Miss Senior highlighted, you will see that there are a lot of ways and places out there that you can get the help that you need. Nurture a talent. A lot of persons, because of COVID and because of all the time that they have had at home, they have found a way and they have found their talents that they never knew they had before, right? So persons have been nurturing their skills and their talents. Maintain a schedule. It's important for you to maintain a schedule, plan your day. You are at home, most of us, working from home. So plan out your day as best as you can so that you can feel as though you are in control. You have a better handle on your life. And not because we're social distancing, it means that we cannot communicate. So we're physically apart, but let's not be socially apart. So as Dr. Ann said, it's important to communicate. All right, so let's give some things away. So I do have some gifts and surprises. So you ever heard the saying that goes, the early bird gets the most worms? Yeah, the early bird gets the most worms. So for the first male to join our session, Mr. Adele Brown, you have been given a prize. So stay behind and we'll go ahead and tell you what your prize is. As well as the first female who joined our session, Miss Peter Gay Gordon, right? Stay behind, we do have a prize for you. So thank you guys for being on time and being here. Thank you for your support. And the most interactive visitor. I always tell my students, it's very important to be interactive, right? Because when you are a part of the session, a part of it, you get the full understanding, you get to express your opinions. And it's important for us to be able to hear how you are feeling, to get how you are understanding the information that you're being given, right? So thank you very much for being interactive, Miss Rose. So Karine Rose, please stay behind. We'll go ahead and provide you with your prize. All right. So time for our random gifts. So the first person who can type in the chat the name of our host, that's me, you can go ahead and do so. Let me see. We have prizes for you. What's my name? Said you missed it. Congratulations, Miss Hall. You are correct. Lashane Hall got it correct, right? So yes, it's Mrs. Crystal Ming Honeywell. All right. And who can name our first speaker? Who was our first speaker? Let me see if you've been paying attention. What's the name of our first speaker? And for this one, you had to really be paying attention. Yeah, yes, Amoy. Yes, Amoy, you are correct. Miss Alicia Edwards was our first speaker. All right, and our final prize for tonight, who can correctly guess the name of our second speaker? You go, Amoy, you go. Great job. Amoy got that prize as well. Hey guys, after we have been online for so long, I'm expecting the fingers to be a little faster. Great job, Amoy, great job. All right, so I will now hand over. Sorry guys, I'm shuffling papers here. All right, so I will now hand over to Danae Allen, who will come. For those who just won prizes, please ensure that you stay back, after which we will provide you with the prizes that you have so well earned. All right, so Miss Danae Allen will come on and do our vote of thanks.
Our most valued guests, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Danae Allen. It is my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on the behalf of the management of meeting and events team, extends a very hearty vote of thanks to all speakers for gracing us with your presence today and for sharing the truth about mental health and methods which may be utilized to live with or avoid mental issues, especially during a pandemic. The information shared was insightful and has definitely educated us in the area of mental health. Given that we have now come to the end of this lively, interactive, and informative event, I take this opportunity to extend our sincerest thanks to the Lord God for his continued blessings, which enabled each of us to make it here today. We are grateful to Dr. Agri Irons, who took the time from his busy schedule to impart on us his years of experience and knowledge in the field of psychiatry and, by extension, mental health. We are most grateful for your soothing words of advice that we must use to rid depression, which were communicating, organizing, planning, and evaluating, and that stress is humanity's response to change. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation to Miss Alicia Edwards, student of the University of Technology and a mental health advocate, who was able to share with us first-hand experience concerning mental health and further insight into how we can go about dispelling the whole mental health stigma, where she lamented that we do not have to look good or be happy to actually be happy. And as individuals, we must take care of each other, and it is okay not to feel okay. The immense gratitude that we would like to express to Miss Canine Sr. for her gracious acceptance of our invite, as well as the ease and poise with which she delivered useful information on understanding the mental situation of at-risk youth during the pandemic. It was a practical, easily assimilated, and engaging presentation where she helped us to understand some of the ways to avoid mental stress, such as avoiding alcoholic intake, finding time to take care of yourself, seeking support from others, and getting help when it is needed, and understanding and knowing your circle. Miss Mings Honeywell, our vivacious, engaging, and captivating host, we wish to use these few words to convey our appreciation as truthfully your effervescent personality added just the right amount of entertainment and relaxed atmosphere that such a sensitive topic required. Also, We extend many thanks and appreciation to Mr. Leon Sams, lecturer of the Management of Meeting and Events module, who guided us every step of the way in putting this event together. Though there were many times of challenges, he steered the ship to its destination. We extend many thanks and appreciation to our entertainers and all persons who made themselves available and contributed to the success of this event. Ladies and gentlemen, I trust that this forum has shed some light in the area of mental health and wish to reiterate that we are grateful for your attendance to this online forum. It has been a pleasure having you all, and on the behalf of the management of meeting and events team, we thank you all for attending.
All right, just before you all go, no, let me see if you have any questions, because it's not very often that you get to be in an environment with so many professionals, right? So if you do have any questions, please go ahead and post them in the chat so that our guest speakers can quickly address them for you. Any questions? Don't be shy. Come on, guys. Let's see the questions coming. Don't be shy. All right. So to any one of our guest speakers, how do you deal with the anxiety, and what steps given here tonight have you been following? Miss Senior, would you be able to take that one? Or Dr. Aarons, right? So we understand that we all feel the pressure and the strain of COVID-19. So you have all given us some tips on how to cope. Now, which one of these tips would you say have worked for you?
Well, I don't think that exactly was the question, but the question was, what do you do when the coping mechanisms that we have suggested have not been followed, you know? Well, you move to the next level. You have to...
Or you can go ahead and answer both of them for us.
All right. You have to make sure that you remember that anxiety is both physical as well as psychological, because when you're anxious, your heart beats faster. You feel like sometimes in panic, you're about to have a heart attack, you're going to die. First thing you have to do is to breathe properly. Breathe properly. Slow down your breathing so that you inhale and then you exhale for twice as long. During the time when you exhale, your heart rate is going to be cut down and you're going to feel more and more relaxed. So you have to practice that kind of breathing even before you get anxious, so that if you get anxious in spite of everything else, you can literally breathe your way out of it. The next thing you have to do is to constantly remember that you are not alone. The communication thing is very, very important. You must let people know how you feel so that people can extend a helping hand to you. There is no substitute for that. And the whole business of self-care is to be taken very seriously. Maybe you haven't been looking after yourself the way you should in the past. It's never too late to start an exercise program, even if it is just climbing stairs instead of taking the elevator. even if it's just going for a walk in the evening when you come home, even if it's just walking in a circle. But all of these things clear anxiety. And the most important thing that clears anxiety is knowledge. When you know stuff, when you inform yourself, when you know what is happening to you, you feel less anxious about it. That's the best advice we can give. And if all of that fails, you reach out to the mental health professionals for whatever they think you need, whether it be medication or cognitive therapy or social readjustment. They will guide you through that, because there are a lot of mental health therapists around who are extremely good and who are extremely willing to help.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Aarons. All right, so I do have another question for you. So a student is asking, how can university students join the mental health advocacy programs? I know
Well, you have counselors at your university, and you have a very good health program. All you have to do is sign in there with nurse, or ask to see Dr. Shetty, who I think is still attending at your campus, and they will put you on to the various mental health advocacy groups. And of course, now that you've learned that Mrs. Ming and her group are connected, they can always guide you too.
Okay, thank you very much. This question is for Miss Senior. What advice would you share with someone who's suffering from depression but is afraid to speak up as they might be afraid of being judged?
All right, so we have been talking about help seeking, and start small. The best advice I'd give is to start small. So you start with your circle. And that is why it's important for us to know the people in our circle, right? I often say to persons, I have a group of friends, but there are some friends that I don't discuss certain things with because I already know their reaction to certain situations. So I'd say start with your immediate circle. And if that doesn't work, if you are a part of a church group or even within your university setting, seek help from the professional, because by virtue of our profession, we can't judge the situations that you present to us, right? Mm-hmm. But it is important that we know the people who are in our circle and know what their reactions are going to be like. And so we choose wisely who to seek support from. And in most cases, those persons are able to lead us to the person who is going to provide us with the right kind of assistance. And so I have to piggyback on what Dr. Ian said, you know, when all else fails with the strategies that we have provided, always opt for the professionals because they know what they're doing.
Okay, thank you. And a follow-up to that, what tips can you give to someone? So you're going to provide us with some tips on how to help somebody that we know that is suffering from depression. How can we help them?
All right, so I'm going to take it from the humanistic perspective that says that there are three main things that are essential for helping persons to develop into fully functional individuals. You're not taking on the roles as therapists, but empathy is important, and that term was mentioned earlier. You have to be able to put yourself in the other person's position. Oftentimes when people approach us with a situation, we listen to respond, right? We're listening to be able to say something. I must be able to say something. But the best thing that we can do for people is to give them a listening ear, right? I will tell you from personal experience, when my father passed, the best thing that somebody could do for me was to just come and sit in silence. Sometimes people don't want you to say anything, but just to know that somebody is there, right? So empathy, do not say at least. That's a very important tip to learn when it comes down to expressing empathy. at least the person lived until they were 90. That's a long time to live. That's not empathy, right? Always trying to show people the silver lining. At least you have this, right? Look at the bright side. That's not empathy. Empathy is saying, I can imagine what you're going through, right? Probably you've never experienced a situation, but to be able to conceptualize what a situation like that could feel like and to communicate to that person that I understand what you're feeling. So empathy is important. The other point is unconditional positive regard. It doesn't mean that you agree with everything that they say, but you respect their choices and the values that they bring to the table. And so you create a non-judgmental space where they can vent. That's the best thing that you can do for people, right? When people, we are saying to people, communicate, but it's not easy when people are going to be judgmental. So if you want to help a friend, you have to be non-judgmental. And again, you have to be genuine. There must be congruence. It cannot be that they share something with you here today and they hear it back over there. You know, it is all about the kind of support that you provide. Just being there, providing that listening ear, being genuine, providing the empathy, and being non-judgmental in the way that you help. And research, arming yourself with information is very important. And so when your friends come to you to say, I have this issue, I don't know how to approach it, don't play hero, don't behave like you know it all. Go and seek the information. I don't have the answers, but let me see if I can find somebody who can lead you to the answers that you are seeking. Okay. You're muted.
Thank you. All right. So what advice would you give to someone that has a loved one that has threatened to commit suicide?
I would suggest that you get that person professional help. There are ways that the professionals will be able to detect how likely they are to commit suicide. There are persons who will say, oh, I feel like killing myself. And having spoken to them, you know, what plan do you have or that kind of thing, you'll be able to detect the seriousness of the issue. Don't take it for granted, right? Send them to a counselor. If it's even a pastor who can push them in the right path. But really and truly, you might not have the skills to provide that kind of assistance. So we always advocate, take them to someone. I have had situations because of course I can't counsel my friends, but I have had situations where persons have said to me, I'm having this kind of issue. I don't know if I trust counselors. I can't deal with that situation. And I've offered to go to counseling with them, right? Sometimes they just need that support to seek the help that they need. Some of them are fearful. Some of them have had bad experiences with counselors, with psychologists, and they just say, you know, I'm not going down that road. But if they know that somebody will be there to support them on that journey, then it makes it easier. We don't want to take for granted that if somebody says, I'm going to take my life, we say, you're just joking and laugh it off. Seek the support for them and provide them with the assistance that they need, the support that they need.
All right, thank you. Dr. Aarons, would you like to add anything?
No, not really at this point in time, but I'd really like to add my congratulations to you and your team and to Ms. Senior in particular, because I am very impressed with how, as a young person, she has shown the way really, and her poise and her handling of the communication. I've never met her before, in fact, but now that I've met her, I'm going to make good use of her in future presentations. She is very, very, very skilled.
Yes, she is. We agree. Okay, and
she even has a dimple.
And I should point out only one.
Yeah, just like me. That's how I noticed. I only have one too. And you notice I said a dimple.
Dimple, right.
Well done, ma'am. Well done. I was very proud of you.
Yes, it was a great job. Miss Edwards. Miss Edwards, is still with us? Is there anything that you'd like to add? Any final words?
The only thing I'd like to add, just piggyback on what Miss Senior was saying about, showing empathy to your friends. I find that a lot of time when you express that you're going through something, it's, stay strong. I feel like that stay strong. It's a whole, it rubs me the wrong way because I don't need to be strong right now. Can I just be in my human feelings and feel how I'm supposed to be feeling, especially when it comes on to like a death and you're like, oh, my condolences, stay strong. Strong is the last thing that person needs to be. So I'm just saying that it's very good intention behind it, but just, better wording. That's the only thing that really popped up.
Okay. All right. I want to thank you all again for joining us. You guys have given us so much information, and I hope or guests were taking notes, right? So I hope everyone here, most university students, were taking notes so that we can help each other cope during this time. All right. So I will hand over to Miss Edwards, who will go ahead and close out the session.
Hi, thank you so much, Mrs. Ming Honeywell. Can you confirm that you're hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Great. All right, so at this time, we will close out with the national anthem. So I'm going to ask the logistics team to get ready. But I also want to say on behalf of the group, thank you so much for coming. It was such an engaging session. The information that has been imparted here, it's just invaluable. And I do believe that as a group of young people and all persons who are connected here, it's just amazing. And I do believe that we can go forth and just do great things with the information that we have received here today and also impact other persons. So thank you once again, and we look forward to seeing and hearing from other persons who will, reach out to get the necessary help from the professions that are here today. So thank you once again, and have a blessed evening.
Winners, please remember to stay back.
O land, guard us with thy mighty hand.
All right, so I want to thank you all once again for joining. We're trying to close out with the national anthem, but as you know, we're having a little technical difficulty. All right, so once again, thank you. And I do hope that you are able to take something away from this session. And if you are in need of any help and support, please do not be afraid to say, I am not okay, and get the help that you need. All right, guys, thank you for joining. And I hope we all learned something today. Bye-bye.
All right, so just a reminder for the winners of prizes to just remain behind real quick and for students to remain behind as well. Thank you so much. All other participants, feel free to leave the session. Thank you.